to you.
President Trump did a number of positive things to help dismantle the deep state.
He started.
Yeah, and so can you comment on how you would continue that and maybe have ways that might even be more effective? I mean, even President Reagan said, I want to get rid of the Department of Education.
So I give Donald Trump immense credit for rolling that log over in that swamp, and we saw what crawled out. The analogy I'd give you is I'm bringing the pesticide. Okay, that's what we're actually doing, is using the law and the Constitution on our side to get this right. They duped him in some ways, and they duped Reagan too. But Trump in particular, they told him, you can't fire those civil service employees because of civil service protections. Read the law. Those civil service protections do not apply to mass firings. And mass firings are absolutely what I'm bringing to the D.C. bureaucracy. Shutting down agencies, they say you can't do it. Well, in certain cases, so I haven't pledged to shut down the FDA or the SEC, though on a first principles basis I would prefer to. But that requires Congress. But the agencies I've told you I will shut down, FBI, ATF, CDC, U.S. Department of Education, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, these are agencies the U.S. President can shut down. There's limited circumstances where the U.S. President already has the power to do it. If it promotes the efficiency of operations in government, or it promotes the economy, the U.S. President can. And it goes back to what I said to the gentleman in the front, in response actually to the question about faith. This takes a president who not only brings the muscle, but also knows and deeply understands the law and the Constitution, so they can't be duped. And so yes, I am in this to take our America First agenda to the next level. They told Trump you couldn't end birthright citizenship for the kids of illegals. If you read the 14th Amendment, it actually does not apply to giving birthright citizenship to somebody who's here illegally. The opening words of the 14th Amendment are clear on that. They told him you can't initiate mass deportations because there's only 6,000 ICE agents, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement agents. Well, if you read the law, you realize that that allows the president and ICE to use local law enforcement to serve their warrants. But it takes a commander-in-chief and a president and then somebody leading ICE with the spine to actually do it. So yes, I think I'm going to take our America First agenda far further than Donald Trump did, building on what he laid. And I'm going to give him credit for the great Supreme Court that he gave us. Because part of what I have that he didn't was that Supreme Court. So everything I'm telling you, the Supreme Court agrees with me 6-3 on. So now the president who comes after me won't have his hands tied in the same way, because it's codified in judicial precedent. That's how we actually get this job done. And so you got to think on the time scales of history. This is where we're going. And one point about Trump is, by show of hands, they may have asked you beforehand, I apologize for my benefit. How many of you have participated in Iowa caucus before? Good. And how many of you are planning to be first-time caucus goers this time around? Well, I want the rest of you who haven't been to one to do it this time, because it's the equivalent of 1 million people. The impact that every one of your voices has in selecting the next president. And I think there's 2 America First candidates in this race. That's Donald Trump and myself. I've given him more respect than everybody else in this race because it's the right thing to do. He was a good president. He was a very good president. And I respect his legacy, and I will as your next president too. I've stood up against the corrupt and what I see as unconstitutional persecutions through prosecution. I've called on every Republican to remove themselves from the ballots in Maine and Colorado, myself included, if they remove Donald Trump. Because it's wrong and unconstitutional for some Secretary of State to decide arbitrarily to remove one man from a ballot. It's wrong, and I've stood up against it. But if you think at this point that they are going to let Donald Trump get anywhere near that White House again, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes. These people, I think, have made clear they will stop at nothing. And I increasingly believe stop at nothing to stop this man from getting anywhere near the White House. And I think they've laid a trap for us, actually. I think they want to make this a 2-horse race between Donald Trump and a puppet they can control, get it deep enough into the spring, eliminate Trump, trot in the puppet. They're selling us the rope today, right now, that they will use to hang us tomorrow. Now, I want you to fast forward a year. Are you going to look back and say, oh, I was shocked that that happened? Or are you going to say, oh, that was obvious. We should have seen it coming, and how did we walk into that trap? Do not fall for their trap. It's our obligation. For me, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Our America First movement did not begin in 2016. It began in 1776. We owe it to our founding fathers. We owe it to this country to do what's right for this country, to make sure our movement does not end with Donald Trump. We love the man because he got this fight started, but now it is our job to step up and to finish it. That's our duty to this nation, that we have another 250 years and then some still left. And I think that's going to take, we're in the middle of a war in this country right now. I'll call that for what it is. It's not a war between black and white or Democrat and Republican even. It is a war between those of us who love our United States of America and a fringe minority who hates this country and what we stand for. A war between the permanent state and the everyday citizen. Between the Great Reset and the Great Uprising. That's the real dividing line. And I think we need now a commander-in-chief who will lead us to victory in this war. Somebody from the outside, somebody from the next generation with fresh legs to reach and lead that new generation. And so I think that's why I'm in this race, able to go further. We're going to build on where he left off. I've even said, and I'll stand by it, that I'll take him as my most important advisor during that first year. Know where the bodies are buried. Let's get this right. I don't want to relearn those same lessons. But I'm best positioned to lead this country from the front, and dare I say, go further with our agenda and unite this country in the process. Not by compromising on our principles, but by being uncompromising about who we are and what we stand for. You think about this country, the ideals that the country was founded on, they're not moderate ideals. The idea that you get to speak your mind in the open as long as I get to in return. That's a radical idea. For most of human history, in old world Europe, it was done the other way. The idea that we, the people, create a government that is accountable to us, not the other way around. That every one of us gets a voice and a vote in a constitutional republic. That's crazy talk. For most of old world Europe, most of human history, these are radical ideals. That's what makes America great. That is what makes America itself. And that's how I'm going to reunite this country. Not by showing up in some proverbial middle and compromising, holding hands and calling it a day. That's fake. The way we're going to unite this country is by reviving the ideals, yes, the revolutionary ideals that unite all of us as Americans. That's what we need to bring back in this country. And I think it's going to take, I think Trump went about as far as he was going to go, and I respect him for that. But especially when we see the trap they've laid out, I'm going to ask you to not fall into it. To skate to where the puck is going. And to go with the future of America first, because we don't have a long time to wait for our future unless we get this right and do it soon. So thank you for that question, sir. I think we have time for one last question. Yeah, thank you. We'll give you the final word, young man.